And welcome everyone. Thanks for showing up. Nice seeing everyone's faces again. Just quick items. Add yourself to quick reports if you'd like to talk about something. I'm not quite sure on any planned agenda for the meeting today outside of just catching up with everyone. Let's see. So I can just start here. I've been basically working through editing some of the older PRs that have been sitting there for a while. So like how long I've been looking through your cross gradient one again. What I'm doing basically is I made a branch of your branch, and then I'll suggest changes to your branch, and then you can see what changed. And then we can merge them together, hopefully, and get it all in properly.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's taken a while. It's just a bunch of stuff going on. And as well as some of the other stuff, like I've been catching up on the MT2D stuff, pulling it in. And then as we talked about last week, I think we made this decision to just keep that site or that Paradiso wrapper separate. John, did you get a chance to do anything else with it besides compile it and run it?
Oh, yeah, I ran a few simple like forward models with the tiling, and yeah, it seems to be good. I did find like all the ones, or I dug up a few old projects to just see what some of those error messages would be, and yeah, they're all related to too much memory. They couldn't do it. So it's nice to see that that's what it was now. So I had a suspicion, but yeah, it's just nice to have the outputs. So that's cool.
Yeah. That's good.
I was wondering, I might add some other changes that I did previously when I was playing around. I sent you that one script where I was using the multi-processing toolbox. In there, I had some options, or I was also playing around with Paradiso, writing the factorizations to disk, and then importing them back in. I had a few options that I put into PyMat Solver that I probably bring it in easier into PyDiso. I'll dig that up.
Sounds good. Yeah, hopefully we can iterate on this quickly with things like that. The first goal is just to at least expose the same functionality that PyFKL had, maybe a little bit more robustness to it. But that's about it.
Nice.
So if you're saying like your stuff is working well with it, I'm assuming there shouldn't really be any differences in memory usage or speed.
Yeah, it should be all the same, really.
Yeah. Anyway. So, but in the meantime, we're going to get that project moved into, so it was just hosted on my own local branch right now as we were testing it. I'm going to move that into the SimPEG project and then put a license file on it. It should be good. Lindsay, do you mind going next?
Sure, thanks, Joe. Okay, I've got a couple of things that I would appreciate thoughts on. Been working a little bit on some of the items we talked about with respect to governance, and have a couple issues posted there. So the first one is adding publications to the website. And so as I've been kind of thinking through this, it's raised a couple of questions. First thing is BibTeX okay with folks here for like that being what you make the pull request on for getting a publication posted on the website? I think it seems to be something that, I mean, it's what's used for bibliographies, but at the same time, I don't want that to be like a barrier to people submitting stuff if folks aren't comfortable with it. So I don't know if anybody has opinions one way or another with that.
Well, I mean, fortunately, I think BibTeX is probably fine because most of the time, like if it's published work, right, most of the sites have something that you can just export as BibTeX already, so you can probably people would just copy paste it from that.
Yeah.
I think there's like a general citation that you can even just provide an email. So
yeah. Okay, well then we can try it out. The other thing I want to try and encourage, I mean, we won't require this by any means, but is that people include archive IDs as well if they've posted on archive. That doesn't always come with the citation right away, but is nice to have the open access version available if people have made it available, as well as actually. And so what I've done with my own is then there's a URL tag you can have in BibTeX as well. And I've been making use of that to point to the GitHub repository where the code is for that publication. So I'll make some notes around how we try and get publications in, because it would be nice to get all of that information from people. The second thing that raised is, okay, how do we now go from like this BibTeX file to actually something that's nice to look at on the website? I messed around with that for my personal site and got something I was moderately happy with. The thing is, though, the template that I used for my site relies on Jinja, which I don't think works with GitHub Pages because it's dynamic, but we need a static site with GitHub Pages. So we need to build something intermediate or like basically we need to build the whole page ourselves. So there's a couple things we can do. I was thinking, well, if we work with the site as it is currently, I would just hack together something completely custom, which is generally not the best idea. The other thing that I was thinking is we could shift the site over to something like Sphinx or another sort of static site generator. And then that way, what we would do is like either write or find something that goes from BibTeX to like Markdown or RST, which is not as hard. That's an easier piece of code to maintain. So I made an issue on that. If folks have opinions or if you've come across anything that does a good job of ingesting BibTeX and making pretty pages out of it, that would be great.
Sorry, I'm not very familiar with Jinja. How does that work out?
So it basically lets you like template a page, which is actually kind of nice, is that like you can do for loops and things like that. So instead of actually writing out the HTML for every single one of my publications, like I can just do a for loop on a Python object that has them loaded in a list, which is nice. But that means you actually have to run Python code to like when the page is hit, it actually runs some code, which you can't do with GitHub Pages.
There might be a way to like hack it together with GitHub Actions and that as well.
Right, but like Jinja fundament, like the page that I wrote will not work on GitHub Pages. That template won't work. So what we could do, and this is where Sphinx would, if we choose to go with something like Sphinx, we could use GitHub Actions to build the site from RST. That would be easy to do. But yeah, so. Yeah, so we don't need to spend tons of time on that, but if you've come across anything useful, that would be great. It's one of these things that like shouldn't be that hard, but if you don't know where you're looking, they can end up consuming a lot of time.
Starting the web-based stuff from scratch, kind of. I've gone down this rabbit hole, and it's a lot of time. Just if you don't know what fully you're like searching. So yeah, if you can find something to do the trick, I'd recommend that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Feel free to add to those. Then the other thing, and this is something that I think is more of a discussion item, is the newsletter. So I've got SendGrid set up. I need to test it out. So I might spam all of you as I test that, or a subset of you, just to make sure that we actually have it set up and it works okay. And then from there, we can actually send out some newsletters. And so Sagi is willing to give a presentation next week. We were talking about Thursday. We can pick a time. I don't know when would work best for most folks. And Sagi, I don't know what you have in mind for that.
I'm generally fine in the morning time, so probably sometime in the morning would be good.
Sure. Do you want to do like a 10 a.m.
Yep.
start? Okay. Cool. So we'll do that. And so what I'll include in this newsletter, and this is where it'd be great to get ideas on how we want to actually pull these together each month, is right now I have 3 sections in mind. And if there's other things you guys have in mind, that would be great to hear. But the 3 that I have in mind are, first, just starting with some quick SimPEG updates. And I would imagine these being like 3-ish, maybe, well, however many bullet points we have of kind of user-friendly communications on just what's been happening in the last month, what sorts of changes will you have seen, or what sorts of things might you expect to be coming. So the way that I would think about getting those points pulled together is basically just send a note on Slack and ask people to add to a thread any points you'd like included, and then I'll just include them. And then we'll include the announcement of Soggy's seminar, and a Zoom link for that. Actually, could Soggy, would you be able to schedule a Zoom link for that?
Yep, sure.
And share that with me? Perfect, thanks. And then we can make sure that that's shared, and we'll record it so that it can go up on YouTube and everything afterwards. And then the last piece being community updates. And so if there's anything, like if anybody's won an award, or if you've published something that you want to share, or done something cool that you just want people to know about, we can include those there. So that's kind of what I was thinking for a structure. I don't know, what do people think of that? Is there anything else you'd like to see in there?
Yeah, sounds great, I think. Is seminar time is fixed, or it will change for each seminar?
We can figure that out. I imagine it might end up changing depending on who we invite, because there are folks, different time zones that, morning may or may not work, but we can maybe try and stick with Thursdays and see if that works. But yeah, if you would like to give one of the next ones, that'd be awesome, Xiaolong. And anybody else, we can maybe come up with a bit of a list and just sort of have that open and invite whoever would like to. So
Yeah.
put you on the spot. Then the last item with the newsletters is, if you have ideas of who we should send them to and who we should invite to be on that list, feel free to ping me with those emails, and we can either add them right away, or we can send them an invite to subscribe to the list, which I think might be a better way to go. So.
Lindsay, do we have an email list of SimPEG?
So we did from MailChimp, which I can pull. Actually, you know what I'll do is I will grab that and create a Google Sheet, and we can add names and emails to that.
Is there a way, like, if somebody actually registered in the SimPEG Slack, is there a way that we can pull out the email from? Okay, so at least like we probably got a chunk of people there potentially interested.
That's true.
So, yeah, and we can ask them, I think. Do you want to subscribe?
Yeah,
it's probably a good start.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Okay, well, that's all I had. If anyone else has thoughts on those things, or we'll try it out. And if you have thoughts as we send things and new ideas, feel free to add them.
Well, are there any other quick items people want to chat about? I don't see anything else on the quick reports here.
Um, I'm working with Dieter, like kind of basically pulling that Dieter's EMD 3D code to SimPEG. We're almost done, but we are facing this like a memory leakage problem in the inversion side, which I am like which I'm not sure why that's the case. It's very vague statement, and I'm not actually even sure how to describe. But because like you have some expectation, okay, we're storing certain number of arrays, and here's the X amount of memory that we're going to consume. But somehow it kind of, when I'm just serially running like JVAC, JTVAC, dpred, that's kind of fine. But once it gets into the inversion, and then after a couple of iterations, it kind of adds quite a few memory, which it's not skyrocketing. So it's actually stabilized at one point. But yeah, it's much more than expected. So I was kind of trying to keep track of what's happening. But we had the similar problem a long time ago with Rowan as well. So we actually spent a lot of time to like garbage collections. And so we thought sort of figured out, but it's kept happening, and there are many things happening. It could be related to solvers, or it could be just related to, I don't know, stack of some sort of memory leakage. So I was wondering, like, is there a good way to profile that memory, and just kind of a good way to keep kind of, I don't know, search for what are the problem? Yeah, I was just kind of curious what other people are doing, and there's a good way. Please.
I know there's like memory loggers that you can use, like some like the profilers. You can use like memory profilers as well. That should do something similar to what you're talking about, like the same way you can use speed profiling. It should work as well for memory to keep track of like, okay, well, this much memory was allocated at this line, and so on.
Yeah, I can send you, I'm using something similar to what Joe's explaining. I just can't find what the name of it is, but I can ping you on Slack there, Soggy, if you want to know which one I've been using. But yeah, it goes by line and tells you everything. It's really cool.
That sounds great. And John, did you have similar problem with that? Like, because the problem that we're having when you're not storing this sensitivity. So we're basically looping over.
I'm on the phone. I don't know. I think.
So we're like basically looping over lots of JVAC and JTVAC. And my suspicion is actually there. So that kind of iterative process solving the CG, it seems like the memory is somehow leaking at that point. So I was just kind of curious, like whether you have that.
I'm kind of in the same boat right now. I'm trying to do that with Dask and doing a whole bunch of JTVECs and JVECs. And I'm getting an error message saying that exceeding memory, however, there's not any memory to dump to disk, it's saying. So it's like it's done like a pre-calculation. It thinks it has all this data and it's stored, or it thinks it needs it, and then it's dump it, or usually it would just dump it if it had too much, but there's nothing to dump. So I'm thinking it's something of, I'm passing around like a wrong kind of object, or an object that's just not, I guess, agreeing with the parallelization. Yeah, I don't know. Joe, I sent you that MPI. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with Dask, and I'm trying to pass that object around, the misfit object, or the objective function object. Is it just something that object maybe? Like, I don't know, did you have any enlightenment when you looked at that?
I don't think this is related to Soggy, but Soggy, were you using I have a response to you as well, John, but Soggy, do you have are you using like the direct solvers?
No, so although we were using multiprocessing in the simulation level, so we are parallelizing over source and frequency. So that's actually where also another complication is coming, because we're passing the object to each worker. So it's actually doubling the memory footprint. And yeah, so that's actually what's happening. The memory consumption at each worker is increased a lot. So that's actually what was happening. So it was not necessarily related to Paradiso. Only point Paradiso was used at the preconditioner level. So when you're solving the actual Haitian vector system, that was the only usage.
Interesting. Anyway, so John, what you had sent me last week, I think you're passing around like too big of objects with MPI.
Yeah.
And it's just taking too long. It should probably be more relegated to the similar to how you had done it previously with Dask, like just do it at that level on the simulation instead of passing like the simulation classes around.
Yeah.
It's fortunately, I think we don't even need to pass the fields around either, like between things, because it should just keep its own field. Like every process should keep its own field.
Should keep its own fields. Yeah, right now on the Dask, we're just keeping the dpred and then passing dpred around. But then when you get into the derivatives, you need the fields again. And then that's when you need to calculate it again. And storing dpred just doesn't work for that part, but it does for the forward simulation. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a way to pass a little bit less around, or because yeah, you need so much information, it seems, just to do that operation. But if I can trim it down somewhere or somehow, I don't know. Well, I'll keep picking away at it.
Sometimes you to just remake things on processes than it is to send them around everywhere.
That's what I was doing on that other script, is I was just having that run script, and it just loaded everything into it, and it was all independent, not passing it around.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe there's some solution in one of those there.
Have you thought about just writing down writing down the fields and load it up whenever needed? I thought that's one solution, or just computing on the fly.
Yeah, I like the storing idea, just because they have computing on the fly. When the problems get big, it takes up the majority of the time. So I don't know. I got my boss is really opposed to pulling it, like saving to disk and pulling in. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's at this stage, if you got like a good enough NVMe drive, you're still not there like with RAM, but I think it might do for the situation.
Right.
Fun with parallelization.
Yeah, that complicates a lot of things. Anyway, but actually, I could show you one image. I cannot share. Can I share, Joe?
There you
go. So this is actually what I got today. That's the typical L model, and that's what we have inverted. We just used the electrical field. So the setup is the source is here, like far away, and then I was only measuring the electrical field in Y direction. So that's the reason why we're not seeing this part, but you're nicely seeing that part and a little bit of that part. I think if I used a magnetic field or other excitation, I could have obtained better. So this actually takes about an hour. I think it's 10 frequency ish, and it was about 60 cube. So it's not a big model, but I think what's actually cool about Dieter's code, it's actually linearly scales with the size of the domain. So even if I use like millions of cells, it wouldn't take that much longer. So but the problem we're having, the memory is sucking up. Fortunately, I got a big computer that I can run, but it would be nice to actually fix that up. Anyway, so we're getting there, but there are some technical issues.
And that was like has a bunch of numba stuff going on in the background too, right? Like compiled stuff or automatically just-in-time compilers.
Yeah. So under the hood, I think that his multi-code solver has lots of those pieces.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna make an impact. But it's pretty, like, it's almost embarrassingly parallel problem. So only thing that I need to do is just frequency and source. And then only the tricky part was passing the fields when I'm computing the JVAC and JTVAC. So basically the same problem what John is facing, I guess. But anyway, that's where we are.
Yeah, one of the things that I sort of thought about with the fields and doing that, it's like when I started thinking about it in terms of an MPI thing, right? When everything is just running, their MPI is separate programs running and then talking to each other. If there's no need for like the fields to be stored on one thread or one process, right? And there's no, like, you can just have them all be local to those processes and it should work just fine. But I don't know. Multiprocessing works a little bit differently though. It collects things afterwards. MPI doesn't do it unless you tell it to. So we'd have to have some sort of like multiprocessing distributed field object specifically for that would block it from.
Yeah, I think so.
So you're saying you form it and then send it to all the workers, or form it on all the workers?
And just keep it on all the workers. Like you don't send the field object around with MPI. There shouldn't be a need to.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go down that. I'm gonna look at that because that's kind of what I was doing before. Yeah, I like it.
Like unless you like specifically want to look at a field, right? Then you don't need to care about it as long as each MPI process has access to the fields it needs to use. And that should be the case because if it's like usually with MPI, you break it up the same way every time you go into a parallel region. Like the same process gets the same chunk of things every time, right? So.
I'll give her a shot.
Sounds good.
I got maybe a question for you, John, because you're working on stuff related to frequency domain EM. I was talking with Dom the other day because I was doing a really basic example where I was just inverting a really small airborne FEM example, and I noticed that you couldn't apply a preconditioner for that problem. So as it stands right now, just the FEM simulations, they don't seem to have a get diag J transpose J. And I know on the tiling stuff you guys are working on, you could play around with that code and you could define a single tile and you could do it. But I was wondering if it's that much trouble to have a simple implementation, like a non-tiled, and being able to apply the preconditioner.
Yeah, that might be a little bit deeper. Yeah, Dom might be able to feel that a little bit more. I've dabbled into the FEM stuff, but mostly just merging it in so that we could use that as the base for the MT. But yeah, I thought there would have been, or there's not. Oh, okay. You're saying that there is a get JTJ diag, but it's the tiled one, not.
Yeah, exactly. So
the one for
kind of like there's an implementation for kind of a higher level tiling, but we don't have that functionality for a more basic example.
Yeah, actually, we should be able to just have it so that if it like just to think of it as one tile that it had to do, and then.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but the way that you would have to do it now is you'd have to interact with the tile stuff
Yeah.
and create a single tile as opposed to just the one-liner of directives, update, preconditioner.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
It should be practically this. We could use the same code to just, have to have it check to see if it's tile or not. It shouldn't be that much of a change. But yeah, I can take a look at that for sure.
I guess the other question that I had about things in general too was, is there been any progress on the EM1D in bringing that in?
Yeah, as I said before, I've gotten that. I think Soggy, we brought it up that we're going to bring in what we had, at least the simulation parts in right now, and then keep working on the rest of it. So it would be like I mentioned before, the things that need to be worked out are bringing in the stitched regularizers, bringing those into like the SimPEG regularization, as well as figuring out what to do with all like the mesh IO stuff, or all the input output stuff that was there. I think those are the two big things left to do with it. And then, like I said, I was going to parse out what I did and have it be a separate pull request of just that stuff.
Yeah,
Just
that sounds good.
Base simulation side.
Maybe Joe, we could just bring in that without the stitch it part first.
Yeah.
Merge and like kind of do other part as we move on, I guess, because the major kind of changes was on that part. So
Yeah, that sounds good.
And speaking of Devin's comment, while like I keep tracking where the memory is leaking, one of my suspicion was on the Paradiso and that use of, because we are using that as a like when we're generating the preconditioning. So the default preconditioning is different from what Devin said, like what Devin was mentioning, it's a Jacobi. So you form J, compute the JTJ diag, and use the diagonal term as a preconditioner. But the actual SimPEG default is not that one. So what SimPEG does, like it uses the regularization as a preconditioner. And then actually that's the initial guess. And then use the BFGS to precondition the Haitian vector system. So that's what it does. And it actually amazingly working well to me. I'm not sure how other people think.
Especially at regularizations, it works well.
Yeah, so actually I was curious how important it is. I actually removed that part and you need just use the diagonal as an initializer. But that actually makes a big impact because now all of a sudden your inversion model looks very crappy. Anyway, so that's but that's also I'm not sure, that could also be a part that could leak the memory. So now Paradiso comes in as a preconditioner, and that could actually kind of cause that memory leakage. Anyway, that's sort of a point that I was thinking and I was keep tracking. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I did a while ago. There was it might have not have been calling like all those like free methods properly, because like that PyOnTail doesn't properly release Paradiso's memory when it gets garbage collected. The new side unwrapper automatically does, like it'll do that. I have it set up to do that properly. But like, so I'd be curious when last time you updated PyMat solver, because that was like, this was the most recent version that I added a thing that just cleared it whenever it got garbage collected, or it should have cleared it.
Oh, I see. I see. So did you push that to main, Joe? If I use the PyMat solver in main, with that, okay.
Okay. Anything else going on, everyone? Glad to see Doug made it back okay, even though he's not here right now. Other than that,
We're here, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Just-
Good to see all your faces. Yeah. Yes, and California was even cooler than it was here, evidently. So yeah, we survived. Anyway, while I've got this, Thibault, can I have a chat with you right after, and then Devin sometime a little bit later this morning? You guys both
Yeah.
around? Perfect.
Other than that, I kept meaning to put out a post, but let's look at maybe a next, maybe in 2 weeks, having an outside get together with people. I know everything are kind of, so tough to do it like right away because people usually have plans, but we'll kept meaning to put a thing out. Let's look for about 2 weeks out if that's okay. Like a Saturday or something. For those people in Vancouver, if you want to meet up.
That sounds great. You thinking? Where are you thinking, Joe?
Maybe like Spanish Banks area or wherever close by. Maybe Jericho Beach, somewhere around there. Probably a beach though.
Sounds good.
Okay. With that, if there's nothing else anyone would like to chat about, we can call it a good meeting and see everyone next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Cheers.